Hey everyone, welcome back to Code with Poonam. If you're new here, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more coding tutorials. I am super excited to announce our brand new 30-day pattern challenge. For the next 30 days, we will solve fun and tricky pattern problems using JavaScript, which is perfect for improving logic, sharpening the coding skills, and boosting the problem solving confidence. So in today's video, we are going to learn how to print a solid square pattern using JavaScript. So let's proceed with the challenge and we will move towards our VS Code. If you see in the VS Code, we have here our question. What is the question? We have to write a JavaScript function to print a solid square of size n times n. And this is the output which we are going to get it after writing our code. So this is what we need to achieve it. Okay. Now we will come down and first of all, we are going to break down our question. So we will take the important part of the question. So what we have to write, first of all, it is written here, write a JavaScript function, right? So that I will take it and I am going to put it over here. After that, what is the next important part? That we have to print a solid square of size n times n. So that also I will take it and I will put it over here. Okay. Now let us come at line number 9 and we are going to define our function name. So we will keep our function name as what? Print pattern. So let me write it over here with a parenthesis. So this will be our function name. Okay. Now let us come down and we will write our approach for this particular question, that how we are going to approach this question. So we will write here what? Our approach. So now we have to print this particular pattern, right? So what we will do, we will come down and we are going to store here that pattern into a variable called as an str, okay? So I will declare a variable called as a str and I will put here empty quotes. That means I am initializing with an empty string, okay? And now we will use this variable for holding our final pattern. Okay, so that is what I am writing it over here. Okay, now after that we know that we have to print a solid square of size n times n, right? So that is what I will take it over here. Now we have to identify what is the size, right? Because here it is written n times n, right? So we will again go to the output itself. So we can see here easily that in rows and columns we have 4 stars printed, right? So if you see here 1, 2, 3 and 4, and if you go top to bottom also, it is 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? So that means it is nothing but 4 times 4, right? And that is where we can easily understand that for this particular pattern, our n value will be what? 4. So that is what I am going to write it over here. Now we also know that for printing any kind of pattern, we have to use our loops, right? So here we are going to use our nested loops. So I will just write here nested loops. So what is a nested loop? Nested loop means what? Loop inside and loop. Okay, so that is what I will write it over here. So that means here we will have our outer loop as well and we will have our inner loop as well. So what this outer loop is going to do? This outer loop is going to handle, or we can say it is going to control the number of rows. Okay, so that is what I will write it over here. So it is going to control our number of rows. Okay, so number of rows I will write it over here. And then what will be our inner loop going to do? So I will just take this inner and I'll put it over here. This inner loop is going to control, or it is going to handle our number of columns. Okay, so I will just put it over here and I'll remove this rows and I'll put here what? Columns. So this is what it is going to do. So now what we will do here is we will identify this as our I loop. Okay, and we will assume that this our inner loop will be our as what? J loop. So this is what we are going to basically use our nested loop, and we will define our outer loop as what? Our I loop, and our inner loop as what? Our J loop. Now with respect to this pattern, I will explain you where will be our I loop and where will be our J loop. So let us take this pattern and we are going to put it over here now. Okay, so let me just put it over here. So now what I have said, our outer loop is going to be responsible for what? what? Number of rows. That means I loop, right? So I will just write here what? 1. You can see here 2. Then you can see here 3. You can see here 4. So this is our number of rows, right? So 1, 2, 3 and 4, correct? And that is where this will be our I loop, okay? So I will just write here what? Our I loop. So this will be our I loop, which is going to handle our rows, okay? Now let us go and see our J loop, where it will become. So it is going to control our columns, right? So I will just write it over here. 1, 2, 3 and 4, right? This is what we have it. And this will be our nothing but our J loop, okay? So this is going to handle our columns, I can say, and this will be our J loop. You can see here clearly that this will be our first column, this will be our second column, like this. Then you can come here and this will be our third column and this will be our fourth column, right? So first, then this is our second, then this is our third, then this is our fourth, right? So this is how we can easily understand. Then this is our I loop and this is our J loop. So this J loop is going to control our columns, right? So I will write here what? Calls, okay? And this I loop is going to control what? Our rows, right? So I will just put it over here, our rows, and we will put this rows to all of them, okay? So just let me put it over here. Now we will come down and we will understand that where our I loop is going to start and where our J loop is going to start. And along with that, what will be the end point also, where these loops are going to terminate also, okay? So I will just write here what? I loop, and I am going to write here what? Our J loop. Now let us come here and just let us write here start point, and I will write here our end point also. For the same, I am going to put it over here, okay? Now, after this, let us go above and understand once again this pattern here itself. So, you can see here very clearly our I loop is starting at 1, and where it is ending at 4. So, that is where very easily we can write here what? Our start point will be what? 1, and what will be our end point? Our end point will be what? 4. That is nothing but our n value, right? So I will just write here then n is equal to 4 over here. Now for the J loop, what we have, we can see here it is starting at 1, okay? And where it is ending at 4, right? So that is where I will also write here what? 1, and what will be the end point? It will be 4, okay? And we will have here what? N is equal to 4 itself, right? So that is what I am going to write it over here. Now, we will come down and now we will see how we can write inside our loop. What will be the condition also we are going to put it now. So, we understood that our start point will be 1 and our end point will be what? 4, right? Now, let us come down and let us write the loop, okay? So, first of all, we are going to write here what? Our for loop, right? So, let me just put here. This is our basic syntax, right, for writing our for loop. And inside this, we have to write here what? Let I is equal to 1, right? Now, we have understood that our end point should be what? 4, correct? So, how can we write it here? What we will do, we will assume that our n is equal to 4 and we will use n only over here. So, how we can write the condition? We can write here I should be less than or is equal to n, right? And I plus plus, that is where it will stop at n, right? So then I should be less than or is equal to n, right? So it is going to run for 4 times. We will see the working also once we write the code here, okay? After that, we will come inside and we are going to write our J loop. That will be the nested one, right? So let us write here our for parenthesis flower braces, okay? And here let us write our J also. So I will write here what? J is equal to 1, correct? Because it is starting at 1. And what will be the end point? It has to end at n itself, right? That means J should be less than or is equal to n, right? And here it will be what? J plus plus itself, correct? Now we will come inside it, right? And what we thought that we are going to store our final output inside this variable, right? So what we will do, whatever it is going to print. So finally, after the execution, what it has to be printed? It has to print a star, right? That means star pattern it has to print. So we have to print a star, right? So what we will do, we will come here and whatever the printing of the star will be there, it will come here and we are going to store it inside this. So what we will do, we will write here what? str plus is equal to our star. Okay, that is what we will write it over here. Since star is a string, so we are going to write it over here. So what this means, what? This nothing means what? str is equal to str plus star. This is what the basic understanding of this it is, right? So this is what we are going to print it. And what we will do now, see here. Once we are printing this, we have to go to the next line also, right? Now, after this, what we are going to do, after this loop, we are going to come here, and since we see that we have to go to the next line also, right? So for that purpose, in the same string, we are going to concatenate our next line, that is backward slash n. Okay, so str plus is equal to, we are going to put it like this. So it will take us to the next line. So whatever the execution this is going to do, after printing all the stars, it is going to come to the next line and again it is going to print. And then finally we will print our str to get our final solid square pattern. Okay, so that is what I am just going to write it over here. Now, after this, let us understand how this loop is going to execute and how we are going to get our solid square pattern. So we will come down and we will write here what? Our working, okay? So let me just write here the working. And from here, we will take this particular line, that is I is equal to 1, I is less than is equal to n, and I plus plus, okay? So let us take this and we are going to put it over here. And one more time I will put it and I am just going to substitute the values. Now, what is the value of I? It is nothing but 1. What is the value of n? It is nothing but what? 4. So this is what we are going to get it over here. Okay. Now I plus plus means what? It is going to increment. So if you check the condition, 1 is less than or is equal to 4, it is true, right? So that is where it is going to enter inside the loop and it is going to execute this J loop, right? So we will come down and we will see now how this J loop is going to print our star, okay? That means our solid square pattern. So we will take this J is equal to 1, J is less than or is equal to n, right? And I am going to put it over here. Now, if you see here, once again, we are going to substitute the values only. So what is the J value? 1. So 1 is less than or is equal to 4. It is true, right? So that is where it is going to print here what? Our star pattern, correct? And that is where we are going to increment also because this condition is true, right? So now after this, our J is going to increment, right? So what we are going to get? We will get here what? J is equal to 2, right? So I will just write here what? J is equal to 2 and 2 is less than or is equal to 4. Again, it is true. And therefore, one more time, it is going to print a star. Now, after that, again, it is going to increment. J is equal to 3, right? So that is where I will write here what? J is equal to 3. 3 is less than or is equal to 4. It is again true, right? So that is where we are going to print one more star because we are writing here what? Print a star, correct? After that, what we are going to write? We will write here J is equal to 4 also. So I will write here what? J is equal to 4. 4 is less than or is equal to 4. 4 is equal to 4, right? So again, it is going to print what? Our star because this condition is true, right? After that, again, it is going to increment with J is equal to 5, okay? But here, when J becomes 5, 5 is less than or is equal to 4, correct? So the condition becomes what? False. And therefore, it is going to terminate here, okay? And if you see here, what we are doing it here, we are concatenating inside our str, right? So therefore, all the 4 star, we are going to get it add together. So we are going to get here what? 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, and 4 star, correct, right? So here we have 1, 2, 3 and 4. And when j becomes 5, the loop is going to terminate, correct? And after that, what will happen? It will come to the next line, right? And it will come here to our for loop again, to the I loop, right? So now after coming to the next line, it is going to check again our condition after the increment. So here what will happen? Our I will become what? 2, right? So I will just take this and I am going to write it here. What? Our I will be what? 2, correct? And we are going to substitute here also. 2 is less than or is equal to 4. It is again true, correct? So that is where we are going to write here true, and we are going to enter inside this loop, okay? Now after this, again j value is starting at 1 itself. This is 2. But our j is starting at 1. That means this complete execution is going to repeat one more time. From 1 to 4, it is going to give the output as true and it is going to print star. And after that, j is equal to 5. It is going to terminate there. And finally, we are going to get this star pattern, right? And then again, it is going to come at next line, right? And again, the I value is going to increment to what? 3, right? So that is where I will take this and I will put it over here. And what we are going to write? That I is equal to what? 3, right? And 3 is less than or is equal to 4. It is still true, right? So this is again one more time. This line is going to execute. That means our inner loop is going to execute. That is our J loop, right? Then once again, it is going to terminate at j is equal to 5, right? And we are going to get our 4 stars. And again, then what will happen? It is going to come here and it is going to go to the next line, right? Then what will happen? Again, if you see, it is going to increment, right? Because condition is still true. So I value will become what? 4, right? So we will come here and we will write here what? I is equal to 4, right? That is what we will write. And then we will write here 4 is less than or is equal to 4. 4 is equal to 4. So still it is true. So therefore, again, our J loop is going to execute and it is going to give us our 4 stars, right? Concatenating in a same string. Okay. So after this, what we will have now, I becomes 5, right? So we will take this line and we are going to put it here one more time, okay? So I becomes 5 now. But when I becomes 5, this condition is no longer true, right? So that is where we are going to get here false. And therefore, our I loop is going to terminate, okay? So therefore, it will terminate and this will be the end of our both the loops, okay? So here it is going to end, and that is where we are going to finally after that print our str variable and we are going to get our final output, okay? So now let us come down and what we will do, we are just going to write our function and we will see that how this is going to be executed in the terminal also, okay? So let us come here and we will just open our terminal, okay? So we have your terminal ready now and let us come down and we are just going to write here our function with the same execution of our for loop. So now let us begin with our function, okay? So I will write here what function and what will be our function name? Print pattern, right? So let us quickly invoke it. So I will just invoke it print pattern and here I will pass the value as 4, okay? And we are going to receive here as our n, okay? Now let us just come here and we will just console here console.log of n and we can just see here what node and our first file, right? That is 01 pattern. And let us see what output we get. We are getting here as what? 4. That means our function is successfully executed, right? Then what we have decided that we are going to declare a empty variable, right? That is str is equal to empty string, right? So that is what we have done. After that, we are going to write our nested loops, right? So let me just write here our nested loop for and where it is going to start and end. It is going to start at our 1 and it is going to end at our 4. So this will be our condition, right? So we will come down and we are going to write here what? Let I is equal to what? 1 and I should be less than or is equal to n and I plus plus, correct? After that, inside that one more loop, that will be our j loop, right? So I will write here what? For let j is equal to 1. J should be less than or is equal to n, right? And J plus plus, correct? So now we have to print our star by concatenating it inside our str variable. So I'll just write here what? Print star, correct? So I will write here what? Str plus is equal to, and since our star, that will be a string, so I have to put it inside a double quotes, right? And this is what we are going to do it here, right? And then after that, we are going to come outside the loop and we will write here what? Str plus is equal to, and we have to push it to the next line, right? So that is what? Backward slash and n, correct? And that is where we are going to get our output. That means it is going to store inside this everything, right? Now, once the loop is ended, we are going to come here and we are just going to print our str, okay? So I will just write here what? Str. And once again, let us run this file, node01 pattern.js. And if you see, we are getting here what? Our solid square pattern, we have achieved it, right? I will just remove this console.log statement and once again clear the terminal and rerun it. That is nothing but our node01 pattern.js, and we can see we got our desired pattern in a proper way, right? So that is what was needed and we have done this, okay? Now let us have a quick recap of this particular question. So what it was been asked that we have to write a JavaScript function to print a solid square pattern of size n times n, right? And this was our exact output, which we have got it here as well, right? Then we came down and we wrote our important part of the question. And here we defined our function name also as what? Print pattern, right? Then we came down and we wrote our approach, right? So inside that we understood that yes, it will be a string and we have to store it inside a str because our star pattern, that means our star is a string. So that is where we are declaring it here and we are going to hold our final pattern inside this. And we also understood from our output pattern that our n value will be what? 4. Then we wrote here our nested loop. We understood what will be our rows, what will be our columns. Then we came down and we also understood that where our loop is going to start and end, right? And then finally we wrote our code here, correct? How it is going to print it, right? Then we came down and we understood the working of it from I is equal to 1 to 4, right? And where it is going to terminate also. So we have seen here that it is going to terminate at this point because the condition becomes false and both the loops is going to terminate here. Then we came down and we wrote our function, that is function print pattern, right? And here we were passing n as in parameter. Then at line number 54, we just consoled our n to test the function, correct? Then at line number 55, we declared a variable that is str and we initialize with an empty string. This is going to hold our final pattern, right? And here we wrote our nested loop. Inside that, our J loop is going to print our star by concatenating inside our str variable. And since we wanted to take our cursor to the next line after our J loop execution, that is where we have added here what? Backward slash and n, and we concatenated to our str variable itself, right? And once our entire execution is done, it is going to print our final str variable. That is where we were getting here our final output. And at line number 66, what we have done, we have just invoked it with this particular number. We can pass here with different numbers also, and we can get the solid square pattern with that size also. If you pass 6, you will get a solid square pattern size of 6 times 6, okay? So let us come here, clear the terminal and rerun it one more time. So I will write here what? Node01 pattern.js, and we are going to get our exact output, which was desired one, okay? So this is a simple example of how loops work in JavaScript. So try experimenting with different values of n and let me know your results in the comments. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more programming tutorials, and I will see you in the next one. Keep coding, keep learning, keep growing and keep developing, guys. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a nice day.